Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cosplay Made Simple. I'm Justin, and today we're going to be talking about the different ways to put together a cosplay and which one is the best, which ones might not be as good. So, just jumping right into it, there's three main ways that you can make a cosplay that I've categorized. So, the first one is just to buy a costume outright. You might recognize that option if you've gone to like Spirit Halloween, for example, and bought a full costume there. The second way is to buy each component separately. So you might buy a shirt separately, you might buy pants separately, you might buy different accessories or makeup separately, and you put it all together and then you have your costume. The third way is to create your costume from scratch. So you buy fabric and either by hand or with a sewing machine, you sew together your costume from scratch. So the third way definitely is the best way. But the thing is, it's very hard to learn how to do that, and most people can't do that. So I have a very basic knowledge of sewing. So I did actually make this cape here with a lot of help from someone else. But it's not that involved. It's just sort of like a big rectangle with a loop attached to it. So it's not like I was making a whole costume. Like the rest of this Scarlet Witch costume I bought. So for the rest of us mere mortals, we're kind of stuck within the one of the first two options. So it's either buying a full costume or buying separate components of a costume to make up a full costume. So I do think that the second way, so the buying each component separately, is way better. But that being said, there are a few benefits of the other way of buying your costume outright. So I'll talk about those first. So firstly, it saves you a ton of time. You don't have to either, if you're buying online, you don't have to look for each component separately, or if you're buying in person, you don't have to track down and look on the shelf for each at different stores for each costume separately. You're from the get-go, you're just making one purchase, and it can save you a lot of time if time is your main concern. Secondly, I think you know how much it's going to cost right then and there. So, for example, I've had costumes like the Joker costume that I put together piece by piece, and they were a lot more expensive than I thought they would be. So I bought the pants, and then I bought the jacket a month later, and then the shirt a couple weeks later, and it just ended up being more expensive. Whereas if I had just bought a Joker costume, it might not have been as good in other ways, but at least I would have known right then and there that it costs the amount that it does. So those are all the benefits of buying a costume outright. But here's why I think the other way, so purchasing each component separately, is actually much better. So firstly, it's just a lot more customizable. So if I want things to look a certain way, it might not look like that in the pre-set costume. So I might be able to make it look more so customize the look if I'm buying each component separately. It's a very big if, but sometimes you might have, if you have a lot of cosplays as I do, you might be able to reuse some of the same items if they're bought separately. So for example, I have a black leather jacket that I've been able to reuse across now 3 different cosplays. I've been able to use it for Miss America Chavez. I've been able to use it for Jessica Jones, which I haven't actually worn yet, but I'm putting it together. Black Canary, I did the new 52 version where she was in a band, and I know that if I do another character in the future that has a black leather jacket, I can save money by only buying the other components. Whereas if I bought the full costume, it would probably be more expensive than just buying the rest of the components. Hey, I'm pausing the video to ask you to subscribe. I have a somewhat ambitious goal of monetizing this channel in the next 5 years, and the first step towards doing that is 500 subscribers. I post new videos every week, including cosplay tutorials, reviews, and vlogs. It genuinely fills me with joy every time a new person subscribes. So if you're ready to join a community of cosplay lovers and fiction lovers, and you want to give me a ping of dopamine, then don't delay. Subscribe today. The next reason is that you might be able to thrift some of those items to save a ton of money. I did a separate video about how you can save money on cosplays by thrifting. I'll link to that. And it's way more common to be able to buy separate items for cosplays at a thrift store compared to a full costume. Sometimes Goodwill will have a couple preset Halloween costumes, but it's not really comprehensive. They're rarely for adults. They're usually for kids, and there's not that much variety. So if you're looking to save money on cosplays by thrifting, you can do that by buying each component separately. Also, a lot of times when you're buying a costume outright, you can only select one size. Even if you're buying it online, a lot of times you can only select one size for everything. And so I've run into issues where, but back before I started buying each component separately, when I was buying the full costume, where I would be, say, a medium in the shirt, but I would be like an extra large in the pants. When you can only select one size, some of it might be really baggy and some of it might be really tight, and so that just doesn't really work that well. Whereas when you're buying each thing separately, you select the size that you want, and it fits the way that you want it to. And lastly, I think what's really the biggest reason why I almost always buy each component of a cosplay separately is it's really memorable when you have to track down each item separately. It really gives a backstory to your cosplay. It's hard to describe, but it's just when you have the cosplay, it just feels so much better when you've even if you haven't created it from scratch yourself, you put it together yourself, you compile it yourself. It just gives me a much better feeling. And so that's where I'm going to wrap it up for today. Leave me a comment and let me know, do you prefer to have a cosplay that's to buy cosplays outright, or do you prefer to buy each component separately like I do, or are you way smarter than the rest of us and you know how to sew and you can create your costume from scratch? Hopefully this video taught you something new or helped in your decision making process of how you're going to get a cosplay. And subscribe if you're new, and I hope to see you again in another video. Goodbye, and remember, cosplay is for everyone.